We are now on. What's up, guys? If you're watching the replay, thank you for being here. We're going to talk about some great stuff like how to open your book. And I got a big bag here from Barnes & Noble that I went this morning. Actually, I think the receipt's in here. Okay, so we got the receipt. It says Barnes & Noble, $197.99 I spent today on some books, and I am a part of the Barnes & Noble membership club, so that is at a discount rate. But stick around, because at the end I'm going to show you how you might be able to win all the 10 books that are in here. And what we're going to do is, if you look at the cards or the videos that are linked to in the description later on after this is done, you'll see some videos that I published earlier this week about publishing books. I had a lot of great feedback about those particular videos. One about how to write your book and hopefully turn it into a bestseller, and another one about how to market your book. So with all of the excitement about book writing this week, I decided it might be fun to, on the live stream this week, we go live every single Friday, I thought it might be fun to hang out and kind of pop open the covers of these books that are top-selling books in various categories around the business and personal development and sort of diet arena. And let's just see how they start. How do they start these books? I honestly have not gone through these yet. I haven't read these books. I've read a couple of them. A couple of them I listened to on Audible, but we're going to deep dive into them after we say hello to everybody. David says, hello, hi, Pat, Lennis, Azul in the house, Bunny, Mina, Mel. Mina's always on these. I love you, Mina. Thank you for being here. And we got a crowd watching on Instagram as well, which is really cool. And if you're on Instagram, come check us out right now live at patflynn.com/live. And again, we go live every Friday, although next week I'm going to be in Puerto Rico meeting up with John Lee Dumas, so I won't be going live next week, unless maybe I can while I'm there. We'll see. But we're going to dive into these books here. I don't know if you can see them in there, but we got 10 of them in there. We're going to go through them one by one rather quickly. I'm just going to read off maybe the first 2 pages of each, or maybe even just the first part of the first page. And then we're going to discuss and dissect, okay, what's going on? Why is the author starting their book this way? And for those of you who are writing books, maybe you have a book in you that you know you're going to start writing in the future, it might be a great way for you to understand, okay, well, what are the first parts of my book going to be about? How do I hook a reader? How do I get somebody to stick around and read the rest of this book? Because likely you're going to spend a lot of time, money, sweat, and effort into writing a book. You want to make sure people read as much of it as possible. How do you hook them in? We're going to dive into these books right now. So Gianna says, yeehaw, love that. Brett says hi from Folsom, California. Edwin, Law Offices of Jacob. Kathy, Adet, Desert Rose, live streaming pros. Oh no, you're about to kill me. I have too many books already. Well, if you win this, then you will have 10 more. And again, like I said at the end, you'll be able to win this. But I did want to give a shout out to Mom Gamers. So Mom Gamers is a person who had followed my live stream last week, and she won the Will It Fly book signed by me and also an Ask Pat t-shirt. That's something we did for the replay viewers who watched last week's replay. So Mom Gamers, send an email to pat@smartpassiveincome.com. Congratulations, you won a signed copy of Will It Fly and the Ask Pat shirt. Now make sure you all stick around, because you're going to have the opportunity to win this, even you replay viewers. And so let's just dive right in. We're going to go into these books one by one, and these are some books that I picked up at Barnes & Noble. They were on the shelves, the cover facing out, which means, they're important, right, at Barnes & Noble. And we're just going to dive in. So let's pick one of these books. All right, we got The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. He's written a lot of great books. Outliers, David versus Goliath. He is somebody, it's interesting with Malcolm. I remember when I was writing my book, I was like, I love Malcolm's books. I want to write my books just like Malcolm. And as a result of that, I really struggled, because I felt like I had to add all this research and all this stuff in my book, which was completely unnecessary. I tried to be somebody who I wasn't. So the first lesson for you is always be you. But we can get inspiration from books, but don't try to be just like somebody else just because you like what they do. Develop your own style and just you do you, okay? Does that make sense? Good. Adet says, from the Philippines, awesome book, says Nicholas. Dan Stratton says, Tipping Point, good book, learned a lot from it. Okay, so let's dive in and see how this book starts. And I'm going to start in chapter 1. I'm not going to start in the intros. I also think it's really cool to see who these books are dedicated to. This one says, to my parents, Joyce and Graham Gladwell. Oh, that's sweet. All right, The Tipping Point, introduction. We're going to go into chapter 1 here. So chapter 1. Let's just start off a little bit. I think this might be interesting. In the mid-1990s, the city of Baltimore was attacked by an epidemic of syphilis. In the space of a year from 1995 to 1996, the number of children born with the disease increased by 500%. If you look at Baltimore syphilis rates on a graph, the line runs straight for years, and then when it hits 1995, rises almost at a right angle. Okay, so let's talk about that. What is he doing there? What is he doing? Well, Malcolm is known for sort of dissecting certain things that are happening in the world in an interesting way. So already I'm interested. So what happened in Baltimore in 1995? And another thing he did is he painted a picture of what was it like before to what was it like after, in a way where we don't even see it. That there is no graph here for us to see, but we can envision and understand what that graph might look like. 500% is a lot, and all in a short period of time. So now I'm hooked. I want to know what is the deal here. So it's interesting because he's starting with facts. You know, a lot of books that you're going to see, and this is a very common thing to do, is to start with a story. He's starting with like a really interesting thing that happened that was unusual. So now we're in. Great shirt, Pat, says Zen Rose. Gather around, students. We are doing a reading circle. The Tipping Point, read by a guy named Pat Flynn. Yes. Reading time with Pat. So, and by the way, this chapter is titled The 3 Rules of Epidemics. So already we kind of have a sense of what this is about. We're getting already into a case study about an epidemic that happened, and we understand the before and after, and we kind of want to know what's going on. So already I'm in. So one way to start your books is to talk about something unusual. It doesn't necessarily have to be a story, but already in the first paragraph, I'm in, right? And it's kind of setting me up for, okay, well, how did this happen? And I'm guessing based on the content, we're going to understand, okay, well, how can we understand how this happened and what can we learn from it? It makes you ask questions, Kathy. Any other comments on that? I'm just going to read likely the first or second paragraph because I don't want this to be necessarily reading time. I mean, I could continue to go deeper into this because this is one of my favorite books. I actually did read this book before. How Little Things Can Make a Big Difference. So I like that title as well, and looking at the cover, you'll notice that there's a match, right? A little thing that can make a big difference. This reminds me of that song, was it called Fight Song? Right? The ocean, motion, something like that, right? Like that reminds me of the match, a big explosion, motion, ocean. Yes, okay. So that's The Tipping Point. That's one of the books that you can potentially win. All right, let's pick up next next book. Simon Sinek. This is, I think, one of his latest books. Simon Sinek, the author of Start With Why, which is kind of what we all know him for, right? The TEDx thing. Leaders Eat Last. This is what I thought was interesting about the cover. There's a blue dot here, right? Like you cannot miss this if you're watching it live. It says now with an expanded chapter on leading millennials. And this is a big thing. Actually, he had a YouTube video go viral pretty recently about why millennials are unhappy or something of that nature. And it was really interesting. I think a lot of people are now targeting millennials. Now that millennials, I'm just outside. I'm a little bit older than millennials, so I wouldn't necessarily count myself as a millennial. I was born in 1982. But this is about how or why some teams pull together and others don't. So this is more of a management book. If you own a business, how do you manage your team? And likely this millennials part is important because millennials are now joining in hordes the workforce, and they are an interesting breed, right? And so they have a certain way of responding to things. They have a certain way of dealing with jobs. Most of them don't hold a job for more than 18 months, right? I am one, I think, says Mina. Hey, me too, 1982, and totally call myself a millennial. I mean, when millennials are in favor, I call myself a millennial, and when they're not, I'm on that cusp where I can say I'm not. That's kind of cheating, though, right? It's almost like sports teams. Like, yeah, I'm a fan just because they're winning, but then they're not, and then I'm not a fan anymore. No, it's anyway. Okay, so let's read the first chapter of Leaders Eat Last. So let's go to the first chapter here. Ooh, I like that. The Force, right? The Force. And there's a plate there. So that's kind of the motif here, a plate. Leaders eat last. I can kind of assume what that means. Okay, so our need to feel safe. Chapter 1, protection from above. A thick layer of clouds blocked out any light. There were no stars. There was no moon, just black. The team slowly made its way through the valley, the rocky terrain making it impossible to go any further than a snail's pace. Worse, they knew they were being watched. Every one of them was on edge. Now, I don't know exactly what Simon's talking about, but he's painting a picture. He's describing things around you. And when you're telling a story, I mean, this is what he's doing. He's putting us into a story, and he's not just saying who. He hasn't even gotten to the who yet. But he's saying, well, what is this person or group or team involved in? And you can already imagine like a thick layer of clouds. You're being watched. You almost kind of get put into this story. And that's actually something that I do in my book, Will It Fly? I start with a story about my son and his birthday and him folding a paper airplane. So this is really cool, right? Like Lennis says, ooh, I want to learn more for sure. Tense with the first paragraph. And I love that you guys are commenting about this too. Please comment about it because you guys add a lot more value than I do often. Team in the darkness, so many architectural elements already. Let's keep going here. A year hadn't passed yet since the attacks of September 11. Okay, so now we kind of get a sense. Now we're getting pointed in the direction. The Taliban government had only recently fallen after taking a pounding from the U.S. force for their refusal to turn over the al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. There were a lot of special operation forces in the area performing missions that to this day are still classified. This is one of those teams, and this was one of those missions. Ooh, this was one of those teams, and this was one of those missions. So now I'm like, okay, Simon is in on something. Like, he knows stuff that I don't. This is a classified thing that's happening, but now we're getting insider information on it. Now, I'm not going to continue reading here all the way through, but the story looks like it continues down, and there's information about pilots and attacks, and I'm assuming that this is related to the capture of potentially Osama bin Laden. I'm not exactly sure, but it's talking about special operation forces, and I would imagine that it involves, okay, a lot of teamwork and how to make sure this team actually does what it needs to do. Or it could be the opposite, right? The team actually failing and actually not doing its job, which, of course, when that much is on the line is a big deal. And it often feels like when we are in the workforce, right? That's what he said, the force. We're a workforce. We have a team. We have, we're combating, competitors and all those kinds of things. So yes, this is really interesting. So I like this too because now I'm kind of getting the sense for, this is what I do at Barnes & Noble. I literally just go and read books and start reading the first chapter just to kind of see how I'm intrigued. So that's how I know whether or not I want to get into a book and why I think it's important that books should start off in a great way. Did I read that book before? No, I did not. All right, let's see what else is in our goodie bag. We're with book number 3, Nudge. Nudge, more than 750,000 copies sold. You often see this on books that do really well. Why? Because it's social proof, guys. Big, red, you cannot miss it. Why is that important? Because people want to know what other people are reading. It's like when you go to a mall, you see a big group of people, you're like, what are they looking at? I need to know. And that's happened to me many times, and I scurry over there and I see, oh, it's a guy playing VR with his kid, and they're killing it on Dance Dance Revolution or something. So, okay, Nudge, Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth, and Happiness by Richard Thaler and Cass Sustain. Okay, so let's go in here. This was in the personal development section. I know that one. I love that you guys know this too. So let's go into chapter 1 here. Ooh, long introduction. Okay, part 1, Humans and Econs. Chapter 1, Biases and Blunders. And there is a picture here. There is let me I don't know if this is going to look good, but see that. Thanks for sticking around, guys. So there's a picture here, and it says, have a look, if you will, at these 2 tables. So there's 2 tables here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a table here on this side that looks really long and skinny, and there's a table here that looks, much more square based on the perspective. 2 tables adapted from Shepard, 1990. Suppose that you are thinking about which one would work better as a coffee table in your living room. What would you say are the dimensions of the 2 tables? Take a guess at the ratio of the length to the width of each. Just eyeball it. If you are like most people, you think that the table on the left is much longer and narrower than the one on the right. Typical guesses are that the ratio of the length would be 3:1 to the left table, 5:1 for the right table. Now take a ruler and measure each table. You will find that the 2 tabletops are identical. Measure them until you are convinced, because this is a case where seeing is not believing. When Thaler showed this example to Sustain at their usual lunch haunt, Sustain grabbed his chopstick to check. What should we conclude from this example? If you see the left table as longer and thinner than the right one, you are certifiably human. There is nothing wrong with you, so that's good. I like that because now I feel like I was duped, right? But then I'm like, okay, well, it's not uncommon, so at least I'm not alone. Still, your judgment in this task was biased and predictably so. No one thinks that the right table is thinner. Not only were you wrong, you were probably confident that you were right. If you like, you can put this visual to good use when you encounter others who are equally human and who are disposed to gamble away their money, say, at a bar. A little bit of humor there. I like that. Now, then it goes into how we think and some visual aspects of this. And I like this because it's helping us understand, well, what may seem true is not true. And I think that's really important to understand when it's talking about, okay, improving your health and your wealth and your happiness, right? Like think about, when you're, in terms of your health. Some things that we understand to be true may not be true because that's just what everybody does, right? Like for a while in the 70s, after a study came out, bacon and eggs were terrible. They were bad. Cholesterol was bad for you, and that's what everybody considered. But then now, recently, there's been studies and things done talking about how we need those things. And actually, a breakfast of eggs and bacon every single day is actually okay for you, or that would be just like a sin a long time ago, right? So the brain hacking is cool. Now let's talk about this as a writer, right? What is this person doing? I'm involved. I am doing an exercise that's really easy to do right from the start. And I imagine that there's a lesson tied in there too, but I'm not going to go too long into this right now. By the way, I love the cover because a mama elephant kind of nudging a baby elephant, as person's learning, as a person's trying to gain momentum, as a person's trying to learn how to walk, or elephant is learning how to walk. You kind of just need a little bit of a nudge sometimes to get to that next level or to have that confidence that will help you for the rest of your life. So I really like that. I don't know too much about this book. I picked it up because there was a nice big feature at Barnes & Noble about it, but I like the beginning a lot because I am involved in an exercise, which I think is important. I have a lot of exercises in Will It Fly, my book, but they're longer. They take work. You need to write things down. There's papers. I like this one because it's like, here, look at this and look at this. And then, boom, my mind is blown. Why did that happen? I need to know, right? So the brain hacking is really cool. Relating to the world as a whole and the reader seeing where they fit. It's not just passive reading. You are asked to participate, yes. And here's the key thing. When you are involved, you will invest. When you are involved, you will invest. Think about that when it comes to your audience. Is your audience actually involved in what it is you're teaching them or in the business that you have? Are they involved, or are they just kind of sitting on the sidelines watching what you're doing? This is why it's really important to increase engagement in your brand, because when they are involved in your business, and there's different levels of involvement, right? Involved as in like, can they comment and engage? Are they, answering or asking questions on a live stream just like this? Or are they actually helping you determine what to do next? Are they influencing the next chapter of your business? When they are involved, they not just are invested, but they will invest. That's when you get people to start spending money with you because they are invested and they feel like they are part of something instead of just something that is over there. They are a part of it. All right, let's keep going here. All right, a diet book. Bulletproof Diet by Dave Asprey. I've read this book, and it's great. I used to drink a lot of bulletproof coffee until I've been trying other things. I do, diet-wise, a intermittent fasting sort of diet, very much on the same lines as Chalene's 131 diet. Chalene Johnson, that diet has worked wonders for many people, and it's not, kind of along those same lines, but still, anyway, let's get into the first chapter here. So anyway, let's look at this. Lose up to 1 pound a day, reclaim energy and focus, upgrade your life. So I like the subtitle a lot. So the bulletproof diet, like what does that mean? If you've never heard of the bulletproof diet, you're like, I don't know, I don't understand. But the taglines are really important, right? Just like with my book, Will It Fly? How to make sure you don't waste your time and money with your next business idea. So here you go. Lose up to 1 pound a day, which is not, to me, that's like, wow, that's doable maybe, but it sounds like a lot, but can I really do that? It's not like lose 100 pounds a day, right? Which is the extreme, which is like this book is full of crap. Okay, that's doable. Reclaim energy and focus. That means you once had energy and focus, and now it's time to get it back. I love that. Reclaim is a great underutilized word. I think I want to use that more. And then upgrade your life, which is more of a general thing. Okay, let's get into chapter 1 here. How does he start his bulletproof diet book? Can that be interesting? How does this pull me in? Number 1, biohack your diet to lose weight and upgrade your life. Back when I was fat, that's how it starts. Back when I was fat, which basically is telling you, well, I'm not fat, but I was, so maybe you can relate to this. I'd wake up with my hands noticeably weaker on some days than others. Looking in the mirror, I would see puffiness around my face and jawline. I had multiple chins, and most embarrassingly, I had grown a nice set of man boobs that could go up or down nearly a cup size from one day to the next. Sure, these are all symptoms of being overweight, but I didn't understand why they were so much worse on some days than on others. Within a few days, I'd lose or gain a few pounds and even notice a huge difference in the size of the spare tire around my waist. Okay, so we're starting with a story here, like Kathy says, but not just any story. Not like Simon's, which is about a classified story where you feel like you're like on the battlefield and you're getting this classified information that you don't normally have access to. This is stuff that you still don't normally get access to, but it's very personable. I'm already enjoying this in terms of not feeling bad for him. Obviously, he was fat, not anymore, but more just like him opening up, being vulnerable, right? Understanding that, hey, it's almost like the movie 8 Mile with Eminem. I don't want to spoil it, but at the end, he basically removes ammunition from the other person who's rap battling him by making fun of himself first, so the other person doesn't have anything to talk about. And it's kind of the same thing. And this is something that I do on stage a lot. I poke fun at myself, I open up a little bit, and you know what this does? This makes me a little bit more likable. And I don't want to say that like, hey guys, you guys love me. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that when you are presenting something or you are opening a book, by sharing things that you wouldn't normally share that might embarrass you a little bit, you're growing a little bit closer to the reader. So I'm already loving this because, and again, remember, I read this book already, so I knew it was going to start that way. But I like it because it's vulnerable, and it makes it so that so many people who teach diets especially teach you in a way that they're like they know it all and that they have had their whole life perfect, and that they're just here to tell you exactly what to do. And this person's telling me, I was there and I happened to figure it out, which is like Eminem. Yes, exactly. Not M&Ms like M&Ms are the things that can get you fat if you eat too many of them too often. So I really like that. So vulnerability, that's something. I like that we're getting some variety here too. So still a lot of stories. Exercises was one of them. What about that first one? Oh, the first one was also somewhat of a story or more of a data or fact sort of related thing. All right, let's keep going here. And Zen Rose Garden says building rapport. Absolutely. So here's another book by Dan Harris. Remember, stick around to the end because you can win these. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. Fidgety skeptics is an interesting thing. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I think it does play a role in the meditation part because fidget means, right, like you're kind of just all over the place. You're kind of busy everywhere and your mind's racing, right? So I really like that term fidgety. I've never heard it really used like that before. This is the second book of Dan Harris's. I think his first one was called like 10% Happier or something like that. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. It basically directly speaks to those who have heard about meditation but are skeptics of it. And this was exactly who I was when I started meditating. I meditate every day still, just for a short period of time, about 5 to 7 minutes. But honestly, that breathing room every day allows me to focus and kind of train myself to have better focus and creativity throughout the day. But yeah, definitely great title. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics. Let's see how Dan Harris starts this book. So there's a lot of images in here and pictures. Okay, so let's get to chapter 1, The Case for Meditation. If you had told me as recently as a few years ago that I would someday be a traveling evangelist for meditation, I would have coughed my beer up through my nose. I haven't read this book before. I would have coughed my beer up through my nose. So we know that he drinks beer, and we know that he's kind of funny because he's coughing beer up through his nose. Based Shaman says, love the live streams, Pat. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. If you guys wanted to hook me up with a thumbs up at this point, if you're enjoying this, if you like this kind of thing, remember, I've never done this before, and I think that's why it's cool, because you can tell me whether or not this is something we should continue to do. I don't know if you like this format. Any comments related to the format, what I can do to improve, you let me know, all right? Thanks, guys. Okay. I would have coughed up beer through my nose. In 2004, I had a panic attack while delivering the news live on ABC's Good Morning America. I asked our research department to tell me exactly how many people were watching. They came back, so this was after the panic attack. They came back with the vastly reassuring number of 5.019 million people. If you are in the mood for a nice dose of, I can't even read that, Schadenfreude, I can't read, Schadenfreude, you can readily find the whole clip on YouTube. Just search for Panic Attack on Live TV, and it will pop up, which is awesome for me. Okay, so we've already started. I'm not going to read the rest of this right now. But I like it. I don't know how this ties into meditation. With Dave's book, I mean, yes, it was a vulnerable story, but it did already tie into like how I was, how I was fat, and just kind of poking fun of himself and his flat tire around his waist. Dan starts apparently in a very similar way, talking about a story that is even more embarrassing in a way because it's not just a personal thing, it's something that was shown. And actually he tells you, if you want to see this, there's proof. Go to YouTube and look up panic attack on TV. So that is in a very similar way to Dave, like just having me fall in love with Dan right away, because I'm like, okay, this guy is, very vulnerable, and he's telling me stuff that is just basically saying like, here, look at how crazy this all this happened to me. William says it's taking pleasure in someone else's misery. Vulnerability equals trust building, says Purposefully Inspired. Dr. Joella says, I'll give you a thumbs up from Poland. That's awesome. Thank you for that. Thanks, guys. Schadenfreude. Thank you, William. Schadenfreude. Sorry, watched too much Frozen. Okay, so I like that again. I'm not going to go too much deeper into that. We're halfway through the live stream, guys, and just on time now, actually. This is a book that I'm really excited to read. I haven't picked it up yet, but I've read all the other Chip and Dan Heath books. This is called The Power of Moments. And I'm excited because I think it relates a lot to what I talk about when building superfans, which is like how important small moments are in creating that momentum for a person to become a superfan of yours. I've heard that that's what this is about. Why certain experiences have extraordinary impact. Now, some of other Chip and Dan Heath are brothers. It was actually one of their books was one of the first business books I read. Actually, it was the book I read after the 4-Hour Workweek, and it was called Made to Stick. There's another book called Decisive. So if you have some issues and you want to learn how to make better decisions in life, you can be decisive, and that one is great because basically it tells you in human nature, like we always have a or B sort of situation. So if you're making a decision, you either have to quit your job completely and go full-time with working on your own, or you have to, say no to working on your own forever and keep working that job that you don't like. But there's always an in-between, and I think that's the really cool thing about Decisive. Excuse me. So let's start this book. Whew, sorry, I was getting a little coffee there. All right, number 1, defining moments. And there's a big fat number 1 here, even after it says number 1, defining moments, and then a dark number 1 down here. So I don't know what that means. I'm wondering if there's like a number 2 somewhere. Yes, there is. Okay. Chris Barbic and Donald Kemence were sitting at a pub in Houston, recuperating from another 14-hour day running their startup charter school. They were drinking beer, watching ESPN, and sharing a Tombstone pizza, the bar's only food offering. They had no idea on that night, on October 2000, that they were moments away from an epiphany that would affect thousands of lives. Ooh, okay, so it's telling me a story. It's telling me that something big is going to happen, but it's leaving out the juicy parts. Why? Because they want us to continue reading. So let's continue reading. Lennon says, they had me at beer and pizza. ESPN was previewing the upcoming National Singing Day, the first day when graduating high school football or signing day, excuse me. They were previewing the upcoming National Signing Day, the first day when graduating high school football players can sign a binding letter of intent to attend a particular college. For college football fans, it's a big day. Watching the exuberant coverage, something struck Kemence. It blows my mind that we celebrate athletes this way, but we don't have anything that celebrates academics in the same way, he said. And the students at their school, primarily kids from low-income Hispanic families, deserve celebrating. Many of them would be the first in their families to graduate from high school. So they founded a school to serve those students. He'd grown disillusioned teaching sixth grade at a local elementary school. I saw way too many of students head off to the local junior high school, excited about school and eager to pursue their dreams, only to return a few months later with that light in their eyes totally gone. Okay, so down here, I'm going to skip a little bit. In the pub that night, as they watched the signing day preview, they had a sudden inspiration. What if we created our own signing day when our students would announce where they will attend college? This event would allow them to honor all graduating seniors, since it was a condition of graduation at Yes Prep that every student apply and be accepted to college, even if they ultimately chose not to attend. Okay, so I'm not going to go any further, but I like where it's going. talking about an epiphany and how it relates to something that, we all see things all the time. And this is a moment that they had, an epiphany that apparently was changing a lot of people's lives, or has changed a lot of people's lives. And I think that's really important. A lot of us, we go through life and sometimes we might miss those powerful things that can inspire us moving forward. Now, that story was intriguing because it's telling me, something big has happened and set it up. Now, it was a little bit slower to start for me personally, but I like the connections made to, we were just eating a Tombstone pizza and having beer. And just the fact that you could be anywhere in these moments that can change people's lives can just come across your way, which is really cool. So I really like that. The cover is an open loop. How does the jar relate to the title? Very good. Makes you want to see what is about to close the loop. Yeah, let's talk about the cover really quick. They always have something interesting on the cover for their book Decisive. It was an eight, the magic 8 ball. For their book Made to Stick, it was like duct tape. So that's kind of cool. But the idea that like there's lightning in a jar, right? Like I think that's an expression actually, like to have lightning in a jar. Very cool. Topic needs to be very specific for me. What are you into, Danny? All right. Angela Duckworth, Grit. Now, this title's pretty cool. What do you notice? You might notice a bunch of arrows going this way, but then where the title is, this white arrow going the other way. And that's what grit is. It's going against the grain, right? Something that's hard to do. It's against the grain. And I really like the cover of this and just the fact it says like grit in dark red. Everything else is white and black. But that's really cool. I love the color usage and the imagery, yes. And of course, a nice little blurb up here. So this is a book in personal development, but really strong cover. I like that. Now, yeah, so it's kind of like everything else is progressing this way, which is kind of backwards, right? I guess it's backwards if you're looking at it, and this is kind of forward if you read from left to right. Okay, let's go into the first chapter. Again, that arrow motif, I love that. Dedication for Jason, that's cool. Greetings, Lionel, good to see you. Grit is very scarce commodity today. Yeah, for sure, Brett. Greetings from Portugal. Thanks, Lionel, appreciate that. All right, part 1, what grit is and why it matters. So, defining it. Okay, chapter 1, showing up. Each chapter has a little arrow pointing to it too, so that's kind of cool. I use the motif in Will It Fly of the paper airplane, actually. If you have a copy of Will It Fly, a physical copy, if you look at the very bottom of the page, you'll notice a paper airplane that as you fold through the book, the paper airplane progresses through the book. I don't know if you all caught that Easter egg, but I love little things like that. So that's why I appreciate even this little arrow. It connects kind of the book together, which is pretty cool. Okay, so showing up. By the time you set foot on the campus of the United States Military Academy at West Point, you've earned it. The admissions process for West Point is at least as rigorous as for the most selective universities. Top scores on the SAT or ACT and outstanding high school grades are a must. But when you apply to Harvard, you don't need to start your application in the 11th grade, and you don't need to secure a nomination from a member of Congress or a senator or the vice president of the United States. You don't, for that matter, have to get superlative marks in a fitness assessment that include running, push-ups, sit-ups, and pull-ups. So it's basically contrasting like how hard this is. So we're already getting into some grit and some difficult moments. Each year in their junior year of high school, more than 14,000 applicants begin the admissions process. This pool is winnowed to just 4,000 who succeed in getting the required nomination. Slightly more than half of those applicants, about 2,500, meet West Point's rigorous academic and physical standards. And from that select group, just 1,200 are admitted and enrolled. Nearly all the men and women who come to West Point were varsity athletes. Most were team captains. Wow, I'm kind of getting goosebumps just hearing about how difficult that is, honestly. And yet, 1 in 5 cadets will drop out before graduation. What's more remarkable is that historically, a substantial fraction of dropouts leave in their very first summer during an intensive 7-week training program named, even in its official literature, Beast Barracks, or for short, just Beast. Who spends 2 years trying to get into a place, then drops out in the first 2 months? And then it gives you like a little schedule of what their day looks like. This is really cool. I like how it's kind of giving me access to, again, very similar to a lot of the books that we read here. Malcolm Gladwell talked about like, here's a fact, here's something that happened, right? This is going into, here's what happens every single year. You might not know about this, but this is how rigorous this is. And I would imagine it's getting into, obviously in the theme of grit and persevering, which is obviously something that all business owners need to do. Things are hard, and this is the hardest of the hard, apparently. Yet, even still, once you get there, some people drop out. That's how hard it is. So then it gets into, okay, so who makes it through the beast? And so again, it's setting me up for okay, things are very hard, which I would assume gets into a little bit more of the personality of those who actually get into that and why that's important, or how you can achieve similar results, or fight through a lot of tough moments in your life. So that's really cool. I like that. Of the book so far, which is your favorite opening? I'd love to ask you guys. So we have Grit, we have The Power of Moments, we have Dan Harris, the meditation, kind of about the anxiety attack. We have Dave Asprey talking about, I remember when I was fat. Nudge, which, let me go back to Nudge. I can't remember the introduction to that. The Two Tables. So an exercise, just diving right into an exercise. Simon Sinek in that operations that was happening with the Taliban, and the tipping point getting into the Baltimore sort of epidemic that was happening. So we got Bulletproof and Nudge, the meditation one with the beer coming out of the nose. So very visual, right? That author purposefully put that in there for that exact reason, for you to remember that and you can visualize that, right? Okay, we got 3 more books here. So let's go through these right now. And then afterwards, I'll share with you how you can win all these books. I'm just giving them all the way to one person. This book was on the top of the bestseller list for so long. I think it sold 6 million copies, guys. 6 million copies. The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. A lot of people loving the tipping point, which is really cool. So going into data and talking about something that was really unusual. Now you want to understand, okay, well, why did that happen? Juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is something you should always be using in selling, in your emails, on your copy, in your podcast. Where were they and where they are now? Where are they now? Even in your own story, where were you before and where are you now, right? That's like in my story with getting laid off, right? I had my dream job. I loved it. And I lost it and I was depressed. And then I found online business and was able to succeed there. So the juxtaposition of all those things and learning how to tell your story in that way with the beer coming out of your nose, you got to learn how to do that. So I like that. So the Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. I haven't read this as much as everybody else has. A lot of people saying Kondo. I love Marie Kondo. So I know a lot. I know that this book alone set like a movement in place related to minimalism and organization and all those kinds of things. So very, very, very big success here with this book. So let's start. Chapter 1. Why can't I keep my house in order? Huh. So right there, even like literally just on its own page, 2 blank pages, except for just the little question right here. And it's interesting because she's asking it to herself as the author, but obviously it is something that we're all thinking when we're reading it too. And it's something that is said in our household quite a bit in terms of just how messy it is sometimes, right? So why can't I keep my house in order? It reminds me of, a very, I even talked about this in a previous video about writing your about page. Sometimes when you're writing your about page, starting with questions is a great way to start because it allows you to connect with the person who's there. Speaks to everyone. Absolutely love this book. And I agree with Zen Rose Garden. Essentialism is also a great book. So everyone who's obsessed with decluttering, feel free to come to my place to practice. Okay, so here we go. You can't tidy if you've never learned how. So I'm only 2 lines into this. So number 1 was a question. Why can't I keep my house in order? And then also in big bold text up here on the next page, right at the top, you can't tidy if you've never learned how. It also makes me understand. It also makes me question like, can you learn how? Do they teach this stuff? And maybe this is why I'm reading this book. I didn't know that you had to learn how to tidy up. When I tell people that my profession is teaching others how to tidy, I'm usually met with looks of astonishment. Can you actually make money doing that? 6 million books is their first question. This is almost always followed by, do people need lessons in tidying, just like I said. It's true that while instructors in schools offer courses in everything from cooking and how to wear a kimono to yoga and Zen meditation, you'll be hard-pressed to find classes on how to tidy. The general assumption, in Japan at least, is that tidying doesn't need to be taught, but rather is picked up naturally. Tell that to my kids. Cooking schools and recipes are passed down as family traditions from grandmother to mother to daughter. Yet one never hears of anyone passing on the family secrets of tidying even within the same household. Think back to your own childhood. I'm sure most of us have been scolded for not tidying up our rooms, but how many of our parents consciously taught us how to tidy as a part of our upbringing? Our parents demanded that we clean up our rooms, but they too had never been trained in how to do that. When it comes to tidying, we are all self-taught. Boom, I'm going to stop there, but man, I love that. That's like bringing a tear to my eye. That's a great opening. First of all, I love that she, in a similar way to Dave Asprey and Dan Harris, talked about a little bit about themselves, right? Which is okay to do, especially if you're poking fun of yourself in some way. Dave Asprey said, hey, back when I was fat and all this stuff was happening, she's not saying anything negative in that way, but she's gauging the reactions of people when she says, I help people tidy up. And she is saying, these are the normal reactions, which literally line up with the same reactions that I had while reading that passage, and likely the same reactions that you had. But this is the genius part here that I think of this intro and why I'm hooked now. Think back to your childhood. So, of course, this is an exercise, right? Similar to the exercise we saw in the nudge book related to the two things, but now it's a thought experiment. Think back to your childhood. It's an instruction. You're commanding me to do it. You're an authority. And you're teaching me something, but I like what you're saying. I'm going to do it. So think back to your childhood. I'm sure most of us have been scolded for not tidying up our rooms, which, yes, of course, our parents tell us that all the time. I tell that to my kids about the living room. Actually, they keep their rooms pretty clean, but they're hardly in there. They're in the living room most of the time. But then it's like, yeah, your parents didn't even know how to do it. So now I'm on her side because I'm like, you're right. I know they yelled at me. I didn't know how to do it, but you're right. My parents didn't know how to do it. Like, you're awesome. That's great. Answering questions before we can ask them. This is very much like getting into the heads of who your reader is. You got to understand what the answers to their questions are and understand what those questions are in the first place. So I really like that a lot. And when you can have a person essentially nod along with you while reading your book, you've got them hooked. So get your audience to nod along with you. Okay, we got 2 more books, guys. This is the book that I keep seeing everywhere, including Target and at the airport. And you are a badass. So over 1 million copies sold. How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero. So this is a book that I see everywhere, right? And now there's different versions of it. Just like with Hal Elrod and his Miracle Morning, there's Miracle Morning for real estate investors, Miracle Morning for entrepreneurs, Miracle Morning for parents, Miracle Morning for teens. I'm seeing You Are a Badass at Making Money, I think is the green cover of one. But You Are a Badass. So let's start this book. How does Jen start? Okay, let's get to the chapter. I mean, you've likely seen this cover everywhere, right? Part 1, completely different page treatment here. Dark, part 1, how you got this way. How you got this way. That's intriguing in and of itself. Okay, my subconscious made me do it. And then there's a quote here. Actually, this is really interesting. Of the 9 books we've read already, this is the first one that put a quote at the beginning of a chapter. That's something that's pretty common in books. Maybe that's a trend that's going away. Maybe it was kind of overdone. I don't know, but this quote is, "You are a victim of the rules you live by Jenny Holzer, artist, thinker, blurter of brilliance. I like when things are like a little bit funny like that. That's a good strategy for getting a little bit of chuckle, a little bit of laughter. You know, I was taught in the YouTube world that when you have a series of 3 things, to have the third one be a funny one, kind of a funny example. So like parents, managers, and teachers, and maybe the image of the teacher is Miss Frizzle from Magic School Bus or something. So blurter of brilliance. That's cool. All right, let's start. Many years ago, I was in a terrible bowling accident. My friends and I were at the tail end of a heated tiebreaker, and I was so focused on making a great show of my final shot, leaping into action, loudly declaring my impending victory, dancing and twirling my way through my approach, that I didn't realize where my feet were when I let go of the ball. This was the moment I was to learn how serious the bowling community is about penalizing those who roll with one toe over the line. They pour oil or wax or lube or something unimaginably slippery all over the alley. I love it. She could have easily said, they put oil on it. But no, they pour oil or wax or lube or something unimaginably slippery all over the alley, and should someone accidentally slide out of bounds while attempting the perfect hook shot. Sorry, my alarm's going off. One sec. Thanks for being here, guys. Should someone accidentally slide out of bounds while attempting the perfect hook shot, she will find her feet flying out from under her and her ass crashing down onto the surface that even an airborne bowling ball can't crack. A few weeks later, whilst lolling around in bed with this guy I met at Macy's, I explained that ever since my accident, I've now woken up in the middle of the night with excruciating pain in my feet. According to my acupuncturist, this is from the nerves in my back getting slammed when I fell, and in order to sleep through the night, I need a new, firmer mattress. I have pains in my feet when I sleep too, he said, raising himself up for an unreciprocated high five. Okay, so I'm going to stop there, but I get a sense of who Jen is already just from the words that she selected, right? She's telling me a story, right? Number one, which is I'm in her world now. She made a mistake while bowling and slipped and fell and, it has like nerve damage now. But just the language that she's using, I get a sense of her personality right away. This girl is fun. She's funny. I want to read on just because she's probably going to make me laugh along the way. I remember reading a book. April read it. My wife April. She read it when she was pregnant, and her friend gave it to her because she said it was a good read, and I read it along with her, and it was funny because she was so witty, the author, and just made us laugh along the way. So she was teaching, but also making us laugh along the way, and that's something that's hard to do. But perhaps a big reason why people love and share this book, and why it's just so interesting right away, because of not the story, like, okay, you fell and you were bowling, like that's not super interesting, but the way she told that story is definitely really interesting for sure. Cool. Yes, so easy to get her. And Kathy says yes. She's funny and truly a badass. I mean, the title reflects already who she is and what I can tell about her based on the word choices and the description of the oil wax / lube and the unimaginably slippery, thing. Okay, and then the final book. Sorry, the 10th book that you can win if you stick around to the end. I'll share with you how to do that in just a moment. This is a biography. So this is a little bit different than the other books. These other books are personal development, self-help, diet, right? And they all start in very interesting ways. None of them say right away what I'm going to learn. I think that's the big lesson here. None of these books tell me what I'm going to learn exactly from them right from the start. You have to lead into it, or else you are going to have people put that book down because there are more interesting ways to consume that same content. So that's the big lesson I'm learning from all of these books here, is that a story, an exercise, something embarrassing perhaps, or some really interesting unexpected facts are what's getting me into this book. You're not even telling me what I'm going to learn yet. Kathy said, "Oh, you just tidied." Yeah, that's so funny. Kathy's like, "Yeah, I noticed that you made everything nice there. Thank you." What's up, Dave? Good to see you. Okay, last one. Ashley Vance's Elon Musk biography. I read this and listened to the audio. He's one of my heroes. I love Elon Musk. So let's start this off. How does a biography start? This is interesting. Okay, number one, Elon's world, and we all kind of know Elon Musk. He is really in his own world because he believes these things are possible that most of us think are impossible. Yet he's still able to accomplish those things. Do you think I'm insane? With a question mark. This question came from Elon Musk near the very end of a long dinner we shared at a high-end seafood restaurant in Silicon Valley. Do you think I'm insane? I'd gotten to the restaurant first and settled down with a gin and tonic, knowing Musk would, as ever, be late. After about 15 minutes, Musk showed up wearing leather shoes, designer jeans, and a plaid dress shirt. Musk stands 6'1", but ask anyone who knows him and they'll confirm that he seems much bigger than that. He's absurdly broad-shouldered, sturdy and thick. You'd figure he would use his frame to his advantage and perform an alpha male strut when entering a room. Instead, he tends to be almost sheepish. Its head tilted slightly down while walking, a quick handshake hello after reaching the table, and then butt in seat. From there, Musk needs a few minutes before he warms up and looks at ease. Musk asked me to dinner for a negotiation of sorts. 18 months later, I'd informed him or 18 months earlier, I'd informed him my plans to write a book about him, and he informed me of his plans not to cooperate. His rejection stung, but thrust me into dogged reporter mode. If I had to do this book without him, so be it. Plenty of people had left Musk's company, Tesla Motors and SpaceX would talk, and I already knew a lot of his friends. The interviews followed one after another, month after month, and 200 or so people into the process, I heard from Musk once again. So I won't get into that, but obviously Ashley Vance, who's the author, is talking about the moment that he had dinner with Elon Musk after trying to get him to agree to cooperating to do an interview for a biography, but then saying no, yet this guy still persisted. So what is Ashley doing? Well, I think he's really smart here because he's talking about, and there are a lot of other biographies already in existence at this point by the time this book comes out about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is a huge personality and a person we all talk about. He's in the news all the time with his companies and such. But what makes Ashley unique is that he is the only one who was actually able to get Elon to say yes, at least at the point at which this book came out. So what is Ashley doing here? He's positioning himself as the biography to pay attention to. So in this case, this is knowing who your audience is and who else is out there in the space that you're in. And what is it that makes you different? This is his superpower. He's talking about some of the struggles he had and the fact that, he was going to write this book anyway, but then Musk reached back out to him. And I think this is a really smart way, especially for people who are involved in the tech space who know about Elon Musk. This is basically positioning Ashley in a sense of like, hey guys, like, a lot of people have tried to do what I'm about to do here, but and there's a lot of content out there about Elon Musk, but if there's anything you're going to read about Elon Musk, it should be this book because I'm the only one that was able to get access to him. So very much about positioning and positioning himself, in that space. And again, I don't know anything about what I'm going to learn in this book, but really it's a biography. So you don't need to set it up with, in that way. And we're in a story, we're in a restaurant. He's talking about his leather shoes, his designer pants, and his plaid shirt. So painting a picture, it's really important when you're telling a story, especially in a book. You write down those little details. They don't seem very important, but they add flavor to the story that you're telling. So you should add those just like Ashley did. And I think he did a good job of positioning himself as the person to pay attention to when it comes to all things Elon Musk. And I do recommend that book for sure. Sets up the mood of the interview. Yes, all nonfiction, and I perhaps should go into another live stream later about fiction, although most of my audience is nonfiction writers. But, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I'm talking about this particular live stream today. So, guys, how do you win this book? Well, I'm going to give you a URL right now, which is a way that you can win all 10 of these books. Now, normally I do a giveaway and just, award them to a random commenter, but we have a lot more to give away here. So this is the URL that you can go to. If you go to smartpassiveincome.com/winbooks, it's free to enter. You just enter your email address. You gain 1 entry by doing that. If you share the contest and you follow me on YouTube already, then you get 5 additional entries. If you follow me on Instagram, you get an additional 1, Twitter an additional 2, I think. You can gain more entries by sharing it. So 10 books for you guys, 10 personal development books. I don't know if you can see these all right. Oh, jeez. So for those of you watching on Instagram too, thanks for sticking around. If you go to smartpassiveincome.com/winbooks. So smartpassiveincome.com/winbooks is where you can go. This contest will be available for the next week. So by the time next week rolls around by 3:00 p.m., the contest will be over. So you have time to share it and gain more entries, and I select somebody at random after the contest ends next week to win these 10 books, and we'll ship them to you. We'll put a nice little note in there too so you know they came from us, and I just want to thank you guys so much for being a part of this interesting experiment. This is great. Yep, drop the beat, guys. I appreciate you. So again, one more time, that URL, smartpassiveincome.com/winbooks, and you can gain entries there, and again, it's free to entry, and I hope that you enjoy that. So hey guys, thank you so much for being here on this live stream. I hope you learned a lot. And before you go, in the comments section, I just want to hear from you, even if you're watching the replay. What's one of the biggest things you learned from this exercise here? So my alarm's going off. One sec. Actually, we're on. What's up, guys? Good to see you. We're here with the YouTube crew on that camera right there, and they're all discussing what's going on down here. So if you guys wanted to answer that question too, we could do that. So hey, guys, what's one thing you learned when it comes to writing books that was very interesting for you that you might apply in the future. So let me know what you think in the comments. Even here on Instagram, you can comment right there. Thanks for hanging around, guys. I appreciate it. And I hope you had a lot of fun here. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, hit that subscribe button. Also, hit that bell notification icon so that you can get notified when new videos go live and new live streams go up, so you can participate and win some stuff too. And yeah, so you have a week to win. smartpassiveincome.com/winbooks. Awesome. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Is the URL not working? Let me try one more time. smartpassiveincome.com/winbooks. No, it works. It should work. smartpassiveincome.com/winbooks. All right, guys, take care. Thanks so much. Have an amazing weekend. And again, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you in future videos. We got another series of videos coming out next week on the channel, pre-recorded, already recorded, being edited as we speak for your benefit. I'm here to help you make more money, save more time, and help more people too. We're in this together. Team Flynn, you guys are awesome. Team Flynn, you're amazing. Thanks so much. And I'll see you guys later. Bye, Instagram. All right. See you, YouTube. Love you guys. Take care and have an amazing weekend.